This is the third video of my new video series, which is an instructional video on how to perform certain lifts. This third video was supposed to be about the deadlift, but it's actually going to be an extension on the first two videos that I did on the bench press. When I went back and I reviewed the two videos that I did on the bench press, I realized that there was 3 key elements that I left out. There's probably even more, but these 3 key components of doing a bench press, I thought that I should at least make something real short to go over. I don't know if anybody might have noticed it, but I noticed it. One of the things that I noticed when I was doing the bench press is that when I grip the bar, if anybody was really paying real close attention, when I gripped the bar and got onto the bench, I actually moved my thumb back like this behind the bar. I had already talked about hand placements on the bar, but I never ever talked about the type of grip that you should use. The type of grip that you should use on a bench is a full hand grip with the thumb wrapped around the bar. Now you'll see a lot of lifters or more experienced lifters, they will go and take their thumb and they'll have it on the other side of the bar. Simply put, that is a thumbless grip, or for the kids that sit at the cool table, lunch table at school, it's called the suicide grip. Now, there's not really too much that I really can say about using a full hand grip compared to using a suicide grip. For me personally, it's just a matter of comfort. I can't even really, when I think about it, I don't even remember when I started using the thumbless grip or the suicide grip on the bar. The only real thing that I really can say about using a thumbless grip compared to using a full hand grip on the bar when performing a bench press, it's a question of when you drive a car. Do you drive a car with both hands on the steering wheel at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, or 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock? Or do you grip the steering wheel with one hand? So if you're just starting out and if you're not that experienced, like I said, I would recommend that you use, which I do use from time to time, the full hand grip on the bar. But I have a lot of issues with my hands and so on and so forth. For me, for a comfort level, I do use the suicide grip. You can get a pretty good grip with the suicide grip or the thumbless grip, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're new to bench pressing. You know, it's good to try to develop good habits, and I think the best habit is probably to have a full hand grip on the bar. So now when you're in full control of the bar, the same way like when you're driving, you should have 2 hands on the steering wheel, so you're in full control of the car while you're going down the highway. The third issue that I wanted to talk about, I don't have anybody here to demonstrate since I'm down here in my basement alone, but the spot. I've seen a lot of videos on gym failures where there's people who are giving spots, and either people don't know how to give a spot, or the lifter that is on the bench doesn't understand how to deal with a spotter. First and foremost, if you're performing a bench press, it is your job to complete that bench press until the bar is placed back here on the clamps. If you have a spotter behind you, and if you're trying to bench press, say, 315 pounds, and if all of a sudden, maybe into the 5th rep, you realize that you're having problems, and the spotter behind you grab that bar, you have to complete that rep. You cannot let go of the bar, because if you let go of the bar, you have just turned that 315-pound bench press into a 315-pound upright row for the spotter. And of all the world's strongest men that I know and all of the strongest bodybuilders that I've known, I've never ever seen anybody complete a 315-pound upright row. I'm pretty sure that there's probably somebody who's done it, but I haven't seen it. So if you're the person who's performing the bench press, and if all of a sudden you realize that you're struggling with that, executing that bench press, you have to continue through the rep until that weight is placed back on the clamps. Do not let the bar go under any circumstance. Even if you do have a spotter, it is your primary responsibility to complete that rep. The spotter's job is only there to give you a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance. That's not his rep. It's not his set. It's yours. As far as the spotter is concerned, if you're not confident in giving somebody a spot, and if you've never done it before, politely decline if somebody asks you to give them a spot if you're not 100% sure what you're doing. There should be also communication between the lifter and the spotter. The spotter can ask, how many reps are you doing? You know, is this the first time you're doing this weight? The lifter, in turn, can tell the spotter how many reps they're trying to get. You know, you can have like little signals or whatever as far as if the lifter gets in trouble. They can have little visual cues that will let the spotter know that they need assistance. But there definitely should be some type of verbal communication between the spotter and the lifter. So in that way there's no mistakes. You know, if something happens where the lifter cannot perform the set. The last little tidbit as far as lifting that I thought about once I watched the videos. If you look at the side of the bar, that red clamp right there, that is a weight clamp, a weighted weight clamp that keeps the weight in place. You will see clamps like this. You don't really even see clamps like this anymore at most gyms. These weighted red clamps. This clamp weighs around about, I think, between 5, maybe really actually about maybe 3 pounds. When I put the weight on the bar, I can tighten it up, and that is so in that way the weight won't slide back and forth through the bar, on the bar. You also have these type of clamps, which are the spring collars. Of course, this is a little spring collar for standard weights, which we've talked about before. You have spring collars as well for the Olympic size bar that are much bigger. These spring collars also keeps the weight in place and keeps it balanced when you perform the bench press. Now, again, it's just a matter of opinion, and it's also a matter of experience. I do not use collars when I perform the bench press. Really, when I perform any lifts, even when I perform the deadlift, I do not have collars on the bar. And the reason being is, for instance, the red weighted collar that I currently have on my bench. Once you lock that in place, those weights are going to stay in place. So let's say if you're on the bench and all of a sudden you're working without a spotter and you realize, uh-oh, I can't get this weight back up into place. You have two options, and I've done them both before. Either you can roll that weight across your stomach, which is going to hurt until you can get it across your legs and onto the floor, or you may have to tilt slightly to the right or slightly to the left, and those weights will go and fall off of the bar. Now, I can tell you, having done both, it is extremely embarrassing. But it is better than having a gross amount of weight come down across your chest. Well, of course, in the chest area, this is your life, your heart and your lungs. You do any damage to this on a bench press, and you may be as good as dead. So if you're just starting out and if the weights are not too heavy, I would recommend using at least the spring collars. Maybe not these big red collars that you use, because if I tighten up those collars, that weight is not going to move on it. So if you're just beginning and you're having a little bit of problem with balancing, Spring collars are good to use. As you get more experience and as you move up in weight, again, it is a personal choice of if you use the spring collars or if you use no collars at all. Because like I said, in an emergency situation, you might have to turn that bar to the left or to the right to make them weights fall off that bar, so that way it won't come crashing down on your chest. I would assume that this is the third and last part of how to do a bench press. The next video that I'm going to make is going to be how to perform the deadlift.